The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Well, the state of Texas reports that a record number of children died in 2020 due to abuse and neglect. 251 right here in the state of Texas. It's sad and disgusting and preventable. The problems range from maltreatment to drowning to flat-out physical abuse. So what must be done? Our panelists join The Factor Uncensored to talk about it tonight.
And our guests are joining us here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about these alarming statistics when it comes to our children here in the state of Texas. And I'm sure we're seeing the same trend around the country. Joining us now on The Factor Uncensored is CEO of Crime Stoppers Houston, Rania Mankarious, and also Eduardo Casa de Lopez with SNAP. So Rania, when you hear these statistics, are you surprised, and do you think the pandemic had something to do with this?
I am not surprised. I am saddened and I am deeply, deeply frustrated, but we knew that the pandemic was going to result in an increase in child abuse, neglect, and ultimately death. And you just think of what we dealt with. We dealt with kids who were, yes, stuck at home, and that was the safest place to be when you think of COVID, but they were also stuck, held hostage by abusive situations. They had no teachers that they were now seeing who could alert or notice that something was wrong with these kids. They were no longer going to doctor's appointments or seeing coaches or just out in the public where they could communicate what was going on with them. You had parents who were dealing with unbelievable stress, whether financial loss of income, maybe too many people crowded in a home, the uncertainty of what's going on, increased addiction, domestic violence was on the rise. We knew that the unintended consequences of this awful pandemic was going to ultimately fall on the shoulders of our kids.
Eduardo, are you surprised that we're seeing such high numbers here in the state of Texas, 251 children to die last year during the pandemic?
Not at all surprised, Isaiah. As you know, our organization has been in existence for over 30 years, and we have been fighting this type of child abuse and neglect. So it comes as no surprise. What is tragic for me is the fact that we as a society seem to be becoming immune to this type of news. Just last month, we here at SNAP, they unearthed over 200 indigenous children, the grave of over 200 indigenous children in Canada. And that story made the headlines for maybe 24 hours, and then we all seem to have forgotten about it. It's very tragic because these children are being ignored and neglected. It's also very tragic that the majority of these children that we're talking about here in Texas were Hispanic. And so there seems to be a great need in the Hispanic community to get the word out that our children need to be watched.
What more can we do as a general public to prevent this from happening, Eduardo? You said, it's in the news for one day, and then we all, as the public, we just move on.
Number one, we need to care more. Number two, we need better parenting, because the parents have to watch. And it is also terrible, Isaiah, that in these stories that have come out, most of these children here in Texas that were abused or neglected, they were abused and neglected while they were at home, which shows you how parenting skills are so important, because this happens in the home more than it does out in the streets amongst strangers. So parents need to learn how to be parents.
Absolutely. Rania, let's look at the ethnic breakdown that Eduardo just recently talked about from the Department of Children and Family Services, or Department of Family and Protective Services. It says Hispanic children make up the largest percentage of abuse, neglect, fatalities, while Black children die from maltreatment at a higher rate than any other ethnicity in Texas. Your thoughts on those numbers and the breakdown?
Well, it's extremely discouraging and disheartening. And I'll tell you, so many things come to mind. We know that statistically, too, we look at impoverished communities and food deserts, and where schools are lacking in resources, and we see similar overlaps when it comes to ethnic diversity. We've got to do better. And that's what we've been saying for 4 decades rather, as an organization. We need to be in the schools. We need to be giving these kids every tool so that they can succeed. We need to be breaking the cycles of abuse and violence at the earliest age we can. That means we talk about even teen dating violence with young kids. We need to be making sure that these families have health care, that they have roofs over their heads, they have job opportunities that are fair and pay wages that they can build a life on. And we've got to remember that kids are still kids. We're in a society where kids are no longer kids. At 6 years old, they're on Instagram. They're being hypersexualized in fashion and in TV. The content that we are forcing them to consume is not age appropriate. And Isaiah, you and I have talked about this very subject. We have moved away from the vulnerability, the needs, the mental, physical, emotional, and health needs that our kids have. We've just bulldozed our way, bypassed all of it, and we sort of treat them like mini adults, and they're not. They need our protection, they need our guidance, and they need community protection and guidance, because some parents can't fill in the gaps. There are a lot of single mothers that can't fill in the gaps. They need communities to embrace them.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you both for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. And as you both said, there is a lot of work we all have to do out there. Number one, as parents, but also as a community, coming together, looking out not only for our children, but the children who may live in your community and next door.
Up next, an update to a story we first brought you just a few months ago. Believe it or not, a 5-year-old forced to remove feces from a school toilet with his hand by his teacher. We now know the fate of that teacher. But as we break a social media poll, take a look at this. This week, Texas Governor Greg Abbott made it harder for companies to ask you for proof of a COVID-19 vaccine. So I wanted to know, as you start traveling for the summer, what's your take? 67% of you said we need to have a vaccine and a vaccine passport. 33% of you said no, we don't need that vaccine passport. They are ridiculous.